This church has stood here for 1,000 years. Now it's in the heart of a growing town, not 10 years old. This is Christopher Chataway reporting on Harlow New Town, one of Britain's boldest experiments in planned building. Harlow is an attempt to halt the creeping outward growth of London's suburbs. Harlow tries to provide a model for modern living. At the end of the war, a plan was worked out for Greater London and the 10 million people who live there. Its aim was to end the building sprawl, provide a green circle of unspoiled country, and beyond that, build self-sufficient new towns. Similar plans were made for other big cities. Now Harlow is one of these new towns. It attracts more than 2,000 official visitors a year from overseas, many of those from the United States. They see a town now of 30,000 people, but planned eventually to house 80,000. A town of architectural contrasts, yet of simple unity. A town built into the landscape, not imposed upon it. Trees everywhere, 50,000 preserved, twice as many planted for the future. Clusters of houses built in groups by different teams of architects. A Henry Moore. There's always something new, and it's always appreciated in some way or other. Above all, a town of young people. Everywhere you look are children. 1/5 of the population is under 5 years of age. Pram Town, visitors call it. Pram being English for baby carriage. They mean it humorously, but they're right. For in the front of the planner's mind has always been a woman pushing a pram with a toddler at her side. For her, the local shops are right next to the school, and her house never more than 1/3 of a mile away. Now, I'm standing on the top of an apartment block in Harlow, one of the most striking features of the town. And next to me is the architect planner, the man who designed the town, Mr. Gibbard. First of all, why does the government plan this town rather than let people build houses and live where they want?
Well, I think you have to be quite clear to begin with that this town is part of a much bigger plan. I think everybody's agreed that London shouldn't sprawl anymore, so it's got a green belt around it, and the idea is that you expand, or at least one way of expanding, is to build new towns beyond the green belt in the countryside, and this is one of them.
Yes. How do you set about a vast project like this?
Well, it's a very interesting question, this. I suppose, really, the problem's very like designing a motor car or a sewing machine. You have to get the parts in the right relationship to each other. We're now in the middle of what we call a neighborhood. All the houses are grouped here, and in the middle is the school and the shopping, so that people walk to the center away from the roads on the outside. Beyond us here is the industrial estate where all the factories are, and still further, right across there is the town center, which is the focus of the whole design.
A thing that strikes me very much looking around is the variety that you've got into it. Now how exactly would you do that?
Well, you have to remember that in the first place here was a very lovely piece of landscape. And we put these roads and these buildings on the landscape. And I've used the landscape to give the design character. For example, if you look over here, you'll see a lovely stretch of green belt, which gives you a beautiful contrast with the houses on either side.
And now, is it a dormitory? Is it a place where people sleep and live? Or is it really a self-contained community?
Oh no, it really is a complete new town with everything that you need here for a full life. The clue to the thing, of course, is industry. The industrialists come, then along with it come the housing and the shops and so on.
Industry is the key. Since commuting to London was out, the jobs had to be here before the houses. Once the pioneer firms made a start and found it worked, the others followed, and so the town could grow. Today there are 60 firms, and another industrial area of equal size is just starting. No one industry town, this. A variety of products that offer a cushion against unemployment. One of the early industrial settlers was this firm of bookbinders. A large part of their production is for export. Much of it, Bibles in every language under the sun. Now this is Mr. Hartnell, the managing director of the firm. Why, Mr. Hartnell, did you come here in the first place?
9.5 years ago, in a tin shed, South London, we started the business with £15 9.5 years ago. We expanded this factory and found eventually that the site was zoned for housing.
So you
had to move. Yes.
Did you get workers easily here?
Yes, after examining all the new towns and choosing Harlow because we felt it was going to be the most progressive, and checking on the type of housing that they had provided and selection and choice which would be offered to the workers, we chose Harlow and settled, advertised to show that Harlow was the leading town of this Elizabethan era.
And has the move paid off for you?
Yes, we started off with 20,000 square feet 4 years ago, and we're over 4 times the size today, 4 years later.
And the men themselves, are they happy?
Very happy, very contented. They're interested in working to earn, to buy, to live, to improve themselves, to provide cars for their pleasures and various other amenities for the home.
Do you believe that they work better here than in London?
Definitely. Our production is much higher than comparable towns, and absenteeism nil.
Was your move here financed in any way by the Harlow authorities?
No, we had to stand on our own 2 feet there.
In the evening, nobody has to fight through a crowded subway anymore. There's a specially built cycle track, and home is seldom more than 10 minutes away. In these surroundings, employers say that productivity has gone up 20% since moving to Harlow. Absenteeism is almost nil. Most of the workers are skilled or semi-skilled. Typical is Bob Atkins, who lives in this quiet close. What's your job?
I'm a printer's reader in one of the local printing works.
Have you good working conditions?
Definitely so, yes.
Better than in London?
I would say so on the whole, yes.
How does
definitely.
pay compare?
Slightly less than in London. Of course, you have the saving in fares and travelling time.
What do you pay for your house here?
Just under £2 a week.
$6 a week.
Yes.
What do you get for that? How many rooms?
That's a 3-bedroom house with a large living room, a kitchen and the usual office accommodation.
Now, I understand that to get a house here, you first got to have a job in Harlow. If you want to leave your job, could you still keep this house?
Oh, yes, that is done. A small proportion, I would say, only have done that, taken jobs elsewhere.
Would you have any inclination to leave Harlow?
No, I'm very happy here. I like the job, I like the house.
Mrs. Ashford, as a busy housewife, do you find life convenient here? Have you got all you want close by?
Oh, yes, it's marvellous. I've only got 3 minutes' walk to the local shops.
A good range of shops there?
Very good. We've got about 40 to 50 shops. I can have everything I want for my everyday needs.
Who have you got living in this nice little place here?
Well, opposite I've got a building supervisor, then there's a clerk, there's an employee at the American Air Base at Stansted. Coming along this little group, we've got a salesman on the industrial area, Mr. Easthill, and he's also the chairman of our local council. And then I have a supervisor living next door, and my own husband is a planning engineer.
How about expense? What do you pay for this house here?
Approximately £10 a month.
Roughly $30.
Yes.
Is that more or less expensive than where you lived in London?
Just a little more expensive, but then we only had a flat in London, and here we have a house.
Do you find that you can afford a car?
Yes.
Icebox? Refrigerator?
Yes.
Washing machine?
Yes.
You're doing very well.
A lot.
Do you own this house?
No, we rent it.
Would you like to own it?
Yes, I think we would, but after all, one doesn't know that one is going to settle in the place for always. Every house can be purchased in Harlow, and we might conceivably consider to purchase ours later on.
Living in a new town like Harlow is a wholly new experience. Everything about it's different, which is probably why so few people are buying their houses at the start. But houses are even now being erected for purchase only. In the early days, there was a brave attempt to avoid segregation of income groups. In this almost village green setting, the houses of the white-collar man and the factory worker stand side by side. Some residents, not just the higher income ones, have criticized this arrangement, and close integration of this kind is being modified in the future. But, emphatically, there's to be no wrong side of the track in Harlow. All the criticisms I heard in Harlow seem to be the result of the town's growing pains. Everything is there, or planned to be there, but there was still one question I wanted to ask.
Mr. Brown is a scientist by profession, but in his spare time, he's the president of the Community Association. Now, the planning here is most impressive, but I wonder what it's like to be organized to that extent. Do you think that you plan the initiative out of people?
No, on the contrary, I think that they tend to show more initiative than they would in normal circumstances.
In what sort of way?
By organizing their own activities, all sorts of activities, from the completely intellectual to the completely physical, from roller skating on the one hand to chess clubs on the other hand.
There are a lot of clubs, are there?
Oh, lots of clubs, lots of societies and associations, political as well as every other sort.
How many?
I should say 150 to 200.
It's a very tight community, isn't it? You work with the same people that you live next door to. Is that always a good thing?
Not always. For the first year or two, it's very helpful to have someone next door to you that you know pretty well. You can borrow his tools, and everyone's very friendly, but in some cases, after a year or two, it begins to be a bore. And we have had some instances of people who really must move in order to get away from the chap that they're with all day. They just cannot stand it any longer.
And can they move?
They can move. They can certainly move on compassionate grounds, and of course if the family's increased, they've got to move to a bigger house. There's a fair proportion of movement within Harlow.
Now, to have the last word is Mr. Hyde Harvey, General Manager of the Harlow Development Corporation. Now, how is this corporation set up?
The corporation is governed by a number of directors appointed by the government.
How much has this whole project cost so far?
Rather more than £20 million we've spent.
$60 million.
That's right.
Do you pay your own way?
Yes, indeed we do. We lost money, of course, in the early years, but we've made all that up, and I think I can say with a surety that over the long term we shall be completely self-supporting.
You started with a loan.
We borrow our money from the government, but of course we have to pay it back over a period of years with interest.
This is all a great social experiment. What do you think its main results for Britain are going to be?
I would point to the young people of Harlow, who I've seen growing up. They are going to be the citizens of the new Britain. They're growing up in healthy, happy conditions, and I think they're going to be perhaps our greatest investment in Harlow.
The young people of Harlow, growing up in light and space and air. How can one measure the effect? Well, for a start, not one child has been killed on the new town roads in Harlow. But no statistics can tell what will be the full effect of all this. It was a man named Howard who 50 years ago built in Britain the world's first new town. Today, remembering his name and example, Britain builds Harlow and 14 more towns like it.